All right, Carl. Are you ready for today?
I am.
What might be helpful for us to just be centered before we dive in, if anything?
I'm actually feeling really good. It's been a leisurely day with a little sprinkle of work, so I'm feeling a good equilibrium and balance.
Wonderful. So, what would you like to explore in the next 30 some minutes or so together?
I want to explore an evolving relationship I have with my parents. My dad's 85, my mom's 80, and no need to get into a lot of details, but the relationship wasn't a good one growing up, and for a while it wasn't good, and through a series of learnings, it got really good, and it's in a really good place right now. And so I'm enjoying it, and I'm appreciating that as they get older, the relationship needs to shift some.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious about what that would look like in this next season. They have some decisions they're going to have to make going forward around. They have a home in South Jersey and they have a home in Florida, and how long will they be able to travel back and forth? And one of the things that's causing them to not make that decision is that their idea of what it would take to make that happen is different for each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm finding myself curious about what this next season would look like for me in terms of this relationship and how to step into an evolving role.
Mm-hmm. So, really curious about how you might relate to them in this next season.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yep.
It's interesting how our parents, as these relationships shift and evolve over time, isn't it?
Really does. I've been thinking a lot about it, and it's almost we're getting into that kind of reverse where I know at some point in time, I know the role will be more parent, me parenting them, in terms of not quite the words I want to use, but I'm not there yet. And so I'm wondering what's between where it's just been very mutual and it's been, adult peers and deep friendship. Mm-hmm. And so I'm there and I need to but at some point it will be
the transitioning,
the true parenting of them. And then what's in this in between space?
What would be so important about finding that out for yourself?
I think I find myself conflicted at times, wondering how bold to be, how much to insert myself, and so I think just having more clarity and peace around the way I feel I should best show up in this new season.
I'm appreciating how you're being very thoughtful about how you want to show up. What else shifts for you if you were to show up like that, Carl, with clarity and peace you were mentioning?
I think what shifts for me is a sense of fulfilling my responsibility. Responsibility, I don't really like that word. It sounds too, too sterile. I don't mean it in a sterile way. I mean it more in a, what is the, what is the way of being that I need to have with them, mm-hmm. That fulfills, what I need to bring to their lives.
Mm-hmm. So for our time today, what would be helpful for you to come away with in relation to the thoughts, the ideas, the clarity, peace you've been talking about? What would be helpful for you to come away with today?
I think well in metaphor, And so I think maybe having a new metaphor, uh, or the beginnings of imagining the new relationship. You know, like what are the rough outlines to what that would look like, sound like? How would I capture it?
Okay. What comes in the way of capturing it right now, or having that metaphor?
I don't know that there's too much in the way, other than I don't know that I've really spent much time thinking about it. It's come up a couple of times, and I'll insert myself into something in a way that has me wondering, why did I do that? And is that the way I want to do it? And so I've had a few along the way, but I haven't spent a lot of time really thinking about it. And my parents are about ready to move to come back to Florida. This is the time of year where they start whining because it's getting cold in New Jersey already, and and they spend less and less time up there. And so it's always around that time period where, I realize that it's one of the decisions they have to make. And it makes me, again, curious about my role in that.
So as you're considering this role, Carl, what is the picture that comes up for you? As you were saying, you think in metaphor.
I don't know that I have one. I think that's where I am right now. Like, I don't know that I think, I've thought about the idea of coach. I've thought about the idea of like consultant, so those kinds of things, come to mind, but they don't feel right.
That's what I'm sensing as I saw your face kind of shrug up. It's not resonating for you.
No.
So if you shift away from just simply the coach and consultant, I'm curious what kind of image may come up for you.
It's not in an image form yet, but this idea of more partnership with them. So right now they have their world, I have my world. Occasionally, they'll ask me something. I may give some input without being solicited, but it's pretty much, they have their thing, I have my thing. So maybe it's just moving more into this sense of partnership with them.
As you're saying that, I notice how you brought your fingers together in partnership. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, you said they have their thing, I have my thing. And then when you said partnership, you brought your fingers together. Mm-hmm. So for you just to look at that for a second, what might that bring up for you in this relationship?
Well, the sense of collaboration. And what it stirs in me is this idea of, how do I introduce that more? How do I, well, let me stop. So the question that comes to my mind is that something that will naturally evolve? And I've seen hints of that, or is it something that needs to be introduced?
So, Carl, is that the real question that you're toying with, or?
Not necessarily. I'm jumping probably, but in answer to the question you said, what do you imagine when you see this? It's just what came up for me. So I don't know that I'm there yet as that being the question. I think settling on the metaphor is the place to, still focus, and then ask myself, okay, then what are the next questions beyond that?
Okay. So what would support you in really coming to the place of finding that metaphor for yourself?
I am so sorry. I'm going to go turn the ringer off on my phone. That should have already turned off. So hang on.
That's okay.
Okay. Ask me that question again.
What would help you to arrive to that metaphor for yourself?
I think just, I don't know, it just feels right. It just feels like, for me, it's definitely a sensing. Like, wow, yeah, that fits,
Mm-hmm.
So the word partnership fits for me. And I'm wondering if I could deepen it.
And what does partnership mean to you?
It means that both sides are bringing something to the table. And it isn't, there's no hierarchy. There's no ascendant. There is a sense of kind of equality, both bringing an equal part. And the need for both to bring their parts in order for whatever it is that needs to work.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts that come to mind with that?
That's the way I would, I guess, summarize it.
How are you being in the midst of that partnership?
I was just today was reading something about the way human systems kind of develop, and this idea of a membrane, and that there's that in order for a system to continue to grow, it needs to be open, receive something new, and also closed at times, the sense of both. And so I think this idea of partnership is a lot about when to be open, when to give, when it should flow out, and when it should, and when not to.
And in the spectrum of that flowing out and flowing in, where are you with that right now in relation to your parents?
I definitely think that there's not a lot of, like, I'm still leaving a lot to them. It's not partnership right now. It's there's a little bit more consultancy from time to time.
Sure.
Like I will hear them say something. I'll say, "Wait a minute, is that what you really want to be doing?" Or, "Hey, have you talked to Dad about that? I think Dad's ideas are different than your ideas." So there's a little bit of, I'll step in as a consultant once in a while, I dip my toe in, and then I pull it back out again. But it's not a sustainable relationship interaction.
So I'm appreciating how you're naming the various roles that you're kind of taking on in this relationship, but your heart, it seems like, is wanting to transition to a place where you relate to them in this partnership place, where you're allowing the flowing in and the flowing out, where you're being open. What else might you add to that, Carl, as far as the way you're being to foster more of that type of partnership?
What comes to my mind is actually not how I'm being, but their receptivity to that, in the sense that, are they ready? Are they ready for a new metaphor? Are they ready for a new way of being? I'm sensing that there's that need. But especially if I'm thinking about it in terms of partnership, then I'm curious about their receptivity to that, or even their awareness of that, which I imagine it. I've never been 80, so I don't know, but I imagine that there's that, when do you start letting go? Uh, or invite, in not letting go, but maybe being more invitational and inviting more partnership, collaboration from others, knowing that you are certainly at the beginning of a descent or a decline.
Mm-hmm. So what would support that for you to find that out?
Well, I think what's supporting it for me is having brought the question to the surface, and B, kind of identifying a new metaphor, new way of being with it. So I think that those were the starting points. And now the question would be for myself, I think it's maybe noticing. Like I don't even know that I'm at that stage where I like want to sit down and have this
Mm-hmm.
gigantic powwow with my folks and say, okay, I think the relationship needs to shift, but maybe noticing opportunities for that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe noticing invitations for it, and maybe asking permission for it, maybe in smaller doses, like in, rather than this big shift, but maybe like, wait, maybe that was an opportunity for partnership there. Maybe they were, without realizing they were asking that, maybe they were kind of asking for that, or maybe me noticing where this would be a place that I could maybe step in with partnership.
So as you're saying that, what's coming up for me, and feel free to say yes, no, is that there's this pause that you're almost taking prior to you going to a consulting stage. You're pausing and you're saying, maybe it is a partnership here. Maybe it's an invitation for partnering. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm noticing, as opposed to just going into consulting.
Yeah, and I think the shift is that with the consultant, it's been more, here's my 2 cents.
Yep.
Whatever it's worth. But then respecting their separateness.
Yes.
And so, and having no sense of ownership around, much like you just did in the coaching session. Hey, here's an observation. Yes, no, whatever you want to do with it. And I'm wondering if there's a deeper step where I would stay with it, stay in it, in partnership with them. Mm-hmm. Versus here's my 2 cents. Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
So there's a different mindset when you're remaining in that partnership. What is that mindset for you?
Well, it's what's different is it's partnership. So that's the mindset. I think in the past it's not been partnership. It's been, like we said, it's been consultancy. So I think it's just, it's seeing what's been coming to me as I was considering this topic today is this idea that, there's the parenting, you've got your infants, and then you've got your toddlers, mm-hmm. You've got your elementary and preteens and teens, and then college, and how your parenting shifts in mm-hmm. that. And in some ways, it's almost like with elderly parents, it's almost kind of a reverse. At some point in time, they're going to need the attention that a toddler will probably need. I mean, at some point,
sure.
Right? But I feel like maybe we're kind of backing into the college years right now, and maybe moving towards the teen years, mm-hmm. where there's lots of invitation and then partnership. And so that's kind of what is kind of coming to mind for me.
So in that space of partnership, Carl, what is the belief that you hold or that holds that space of partnership?
I don't know if I can name a belief. I think what's coming up for me is just this idea that what is right
Mm.
in this season, like what is right. So my belief, maybe then, if I extrapolate from that, is I want to show up in the most beneficial,
Mm.
useful way to my parents in this season.
Yeah. And that's what I've been sensing all along ever since you brought up this topic, but I believe there's a part of you that there's love that's being demonstrated, respect that's being demonstrated, and also how can you sustain this relationship over time and however ways that they are going to show up in the next coming years, respecting that, right? So I'm curious if there's any other metaphors that are coming up now that you've stated that belief for yourself.
No, there might. I feel comfortable enough with partnership right now, collaboration partnership, and as a launching off point for me, and then I can see if something more vivid
Mm-hmm.
comes into focus. But I think that's a really good, launching point for me in the process.
What steps, if any, will begin to anchor that? What's coming up for you as far as the partnership? Or just in general as you're moving towards this, right?
Yeah, I'm jumping, I think, but it's just what came into mind, so I need to go with it. But I'm thinking about the concept of group agreements.
And you're very familiar with that.
Yeah, and I'm jumping because I know I'm not ready to be in that place yet. But I'm wondering if that would be the point of full transition.
Mm.
Being able to have that conversation and also saying, what will it look like for us to be together in this new season?
Yeah.
So again, I'm not there. So
Yeah.
I jumped, and I think there's probably several steps before that. And I think, maybe stepping back, it's just me thinking about that from my side, just for right now, just for me to think about what would that look like? What might I need, want, from my perspective, both in what I need to honor for myself, but what I want to honor in them. Mm-hmm. And maybe if I started there, that would, give me some context.
So an agreement that elicits how you would honor yourself and them, beginning with you.
Yeah.
So if you just hop back a couple of more steps, anything else in between that might be valuable for you to consider?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned it earlier in the session, and that is just noticing. I think noticing more now, just starting to notice opportunities for partnership and, as we talked about, and moving away from noticing the opportunities, and instead of coming in with consultant mindset, come in with partner mindset. Mm-hmm. And just from my side, and see how that would change the equation. Just, even though I'm only altering one side of it for right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you feel might come in the way of you actually pausing and noticing that?
Habit. Mm-hmm. Just the habit of the dance of what we do right now. Mm-hmm. So, just.
What else other than habit?
Well, for me, the thing is, this is where I can tilt structure a little bit. And that is, I like to have, there are times in my life that I like to have a sense of clarity around something, around, before the jumping into it. So I think the what else is just continuing to, unwind this new idea in a way that continues to bring me more clarity about what that would look like from my side.
So I'm also struck as you said about tilting towards clarity and structure, that there's also a pace that starts to shift also, and taking time for that.
Yeah, exactly. This is not one of those things that, in the wisdom of my, elder years, I'm recognizing this is not a place to charge into.
Yeah. And I'm just appreciating you, how you noticing when you're jumping and when you're saying, okay, it's not there yet, but you're also providing that vision of where you might want to be for yourself, but really understanding that you're not there yet, and almost slowing yourself down just a bit, purposely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
What else might be valuable for you to say as we come to a close today, Carl? I know you wanted to walk away with a metaphor. We've come away with partnership, but anything else that might be valuable for you to say to feel complete for our time today?
I think probably just saying or just sitting in appreciation for the, how do I say this? But the space for and the intuition around this, like just appreciating the privilege of being able to be there for my parents in this, and that we have a foundation that I believe will allow for this, and that I have the space and the margin to do it. And fortunately, some of the skills and the mindset, because of the personal growth in my life over the years, to be able to imagine this.
I think that's a beautiful part of the evolution of who you are as Carl. Coaching, consulting, mentoring, but yet in all of that, understanding that partnership looks a little different, and you're understanding, okay, how would I want that to look like in this relationship, and taking time to consider that. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. Yeah. Cool. Well, it was a pleasure being with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very useful.
Absolutely.